Okay, well, here we are. I have been sanding and sanding and sanding with the 400 and getting these closer and closer to where I want them to be. You can see from the back here, let me make sure I got this right. I still have to come down on this side quite a bit. You see the white line is gone from the tape. I've already taken the tape out and separated these. Sometimes, well, when I get to this point and everything's getting close, I started like right there, I can feel the brass hanging over the edge. And right here again too, even though I'm still fat right here. I wanted to separate the scales because the other component to this is the wedge. And the wedge can be your savior when you think you've gone too far. And let me show you why. Okay, I gotta level these out. There's no doubt about that. We're still fat on the outside radius. And the back is looking good. Everything, this is all pretty much filled in. You can see a little bit of the line right there from the flat spot coming down, but once again, if I bring this edge down, I'll slowly play with it, bring it down on that side, and then that should match up pretty good. It might be that part that I need to take out to bring it down. This side's looking really good. You can see they're almost touching. I can bring them to where they do touch, but like I say, once I separate the scales, and I'll show you because I already have them apart, it's a lot easier to see what's going on, and with the wedge in there. The other thing I wanted to point out is this end is kind of forgiving. The little guy moves back and forth a little bit, side to side a little bit. Because this end doesn't pivot, there's no real movement to it. You can cheat a little bit if you have to. I don't like to. Always go for perfect. And if you have to cheat, you can. You can see, like, when I was worried about the ends going over, okay, when I actually match this brass to the scale and line it up, you can't see it, but the hole doesn't line up. So all this becomes evident when you add the wedge to the component there, and the other factor that you have to match up to. I have a little satin edge here. I can demonstrate better if you see how it lines up, and the video doesn't really get in that close. But the brass actually hangs over onto the wedge. This one hangs over onto the wedge, this one right down to it, this one over, this one right down to it. So you see the wedge can be your savior if you get off too much on the scale itself. You don't want to go there. You can take it there once you separate it and do the final fitting. In fact, I'm about ready to drop the 400 and go to a 600 because every little movement I make on there now has a drastic effect on how the brass, the closer you get to that edge, the closer you get to making a mistake. So, I know I didn't mention this earlier, but to slow down, to help you slow down, I started off shaping this with the belt sander, and then I went to the 220 to do some more rough shaping and take out the belt sander grits and lines, and then went to the 400 to slow down. Go to a higher grit sandpaper. I mean, if you can't get it in your head to slow down, use the tools that'll make you slow down. When I was doing the other end here, I had this on here, and as you can see, it fits pretty good. Looks like it's sticking over the end, but it's really not. It's a little bit higher right here. When I was looking at it before, this area right here was up in the air. And I was using the 400, but I was only taking like 3 or 4 swipes here trying to get this part down, which it still does need to come down a little bit. And I made a few passes and it didn't do anything, and I'm like, well, what the heck? So when I was looking at it, this side over here was up as much as this side over here in one spot. So when I took it off and started sanding, I found a little bump right there. And when I took that off and put it back on to watch that side, I noticed over here it dropped right down in. So if you concentrate on one spot, you might be overkilling the removal on this side. You kind of have to look around. You know, you can't go, okay, I'll get this side set and then I'll go to that side and work on that side. You kind of got to bring it all down together, and that'll kind of help you keep things lined up as you go, because like I said, you can be concentrating on the one spot and the actual problem will be over here. The other reason why I decided to separate these scales was because of this end. This end is not forgiving at all. That pinhole can't move. So when I do the final sanding on this, I do it with the finish nail in there. I pull it down. You can see it's flopping around a little bit. I don't know if you can see or not, but where the pivot hole is, this is bent up, so when I pull it down, that pulls the front of it up. So I'll do a little shaping of the brass and the scale now at the same time to get them all to drop in there just perfect. What I wanted to point out and why I separated the scales was it looks like it's long on this side. The brass is sticking past the scale. Well, it actually is, but oh, come on, you don't even have the tape in there. Ugh. There we go. If you look, or if you can see, the brass actually kind of goes over the end of the scale there. So what looked like a disaster is actually the way it's supposed to be, or the way it was. And when you get them separated, you can see exactly how much room I really don't have. It's kind of deceiving when you have them together and you got that big old joint there and you're thinking, oh man, that thing's way off. But when you separate them, it's not so far off after all. Which is another reason why I wanted to take them apart. So now that I have them apart, I can put the wedge in. I was worried about that brass being bigger than the scale, but when I put the wedge in here and line the hole up with that, let's see how it goes. This will be the on-camera surprise. If it either blew it or I didn't. Okay, maybe I got the wedge on upside down. Hopefully I got the wedge on upside down. And bada bing. You know, I don't know if you can see that on camera or not, but the scale is actually still a little bit larger all the way around there. It's pretty good right there on the sides, but the back is still hanging off. I've been forgiven. I can still make that brass fit tight up against the back without having to round it over or anything. Okay, so that pretty much does it. Like I said, you can move the brass around a little bit to make the scale, make it fit the scale now. Like these little points here, I'm bending down so they fit flat. This little guy's legs are bent right in here, so he's going to be pushing up the back end. So I will get something nice and smooth and hard, like just a piece of plywood like my block here. I'll use this tool to flatten everything, all the bumps from this side, flatten them back out. Then when I put it together for a test fit, see, this guy looks like he has a little dent right here going in. So I need to push all of that out because it'll make the edges stick up, and I'll be thinking I have to sand when I really don't. It's not much, but it's enough to throw you off. And I think that's about it. Once I get all of those done and I pull it together with the screw and a nut to do a final test fit on it, then I can take a smooth rubber on the sanding block, and once I have it tight and I see any high spots, I can try and rub them down. Now you got to be careful not to grab an edge. This is why I use the smooth part of the leather. But you can smooth those bumps that you pushed out this way back in, and that's after you've sanded so much you just think, man, it's got to be the brass, not the scales. Like I say, all the adjustments I make now are going to be to the brass and to the scales with the wedge in. The other problem I had, I just wanted to let you guys in on something. These two guys are the same. You don't have that with the brass. It has a name going across. I was matching one brass to it, taking it off, setting it down, sanding, picking up the other one and putting it on and going, God darn, it didn't do anything. So that almost screwed me up because they're not exactly the same. One guy had a little more green on it, and by the time I noticed that, I was still pretty close, but I hadn't gone overboard yet on anything, so it worked out. If you do a reaper, watch it. Make sure you match one, not back and forth. Same with the bolster ends too. They'll be bent a little bit more than the other. They come that way from the factory, you know, original, whatever. Like I said, I don't like to bend the brass too much, just enough to make them fit back. But that's it. That's where I'm at. I might have a replacement bolster for this end, but I might go ahead and cut that off right there so they match, and it won't be so obvious that something is missing if I decide to go ahead and use that bolster, or if I have to go ahead and use that bolster. And do a little sanding, a little test fitting. If I get everything close to where I know it's going to work, then I'm going to start putting the finish on the scales. And I might go ahead and do all of that before I do any more videos, which will mean the next video will be gluing on the brass. But I'll be able to show you that I got it close enough, and how I land them in and how I glue them on. Still got a lot of work to do there, but so it might be a long time. I'll post some pictures if I see anything you guys might want to know. Alright, that's it for now. Bye.